Good evening, everybody, and welcome to the February 10th meeting of the Zoning Board of Adjustment. My name is Jay Mankara, ZBA Chair. To my right is Josh Neely, ZBA Vice Chair. And then across the stage, we have Robert Shaw, Member, Steve Lionel, Member, and Joseph Patry, Alternate. We are down one full member, so if Mr. Patry is willing, we'd ask that you participate this evening as a voting member. Thank you. Just by way of an overall introduction, the Zoning Board of Adjustment is empowered to do a few different things, but this evening we have applications for special exceptions and for variance. A special exception is a use that is allowed under the zoning ordinance so long as certain criteria is met. A variance is a request to deviate from the terms of the ordinance, and the zoning board can only grant a variance if it finds that 5 criteria are met. That granting the variance would not be contrary to the public interest, that granting the variance would be within the spirit of the ordinance, that granting the variance would do substantial justice to the applicant seeking it, that there be no diminution of surrounding property values, and that owing to a special condition of the property, denying the variance would be an undue hardship on the applicant. So just in terms of order of business, we will start off by giving each applicant up to 15 minutes to present their case. And of course, we'll ask that the applicant step forward, speak into the microphone, and give your name and address. Following that, we will open the floor up to anybody in the audience who wishes to speak in favor of the application. Once again, each person would be asked to come forward to the podium, speak into the mic, and give your name and address, and then address the board, and you would have up to 5 minutes to do so. Of course, you don't have to use your 5 minutes, but you can. Following that, we'll ask if there's anybody in the audience with any questions, concerns, or opposition. And once again, you have the opportunity to come forward, give your name and address the board, and you would have up to 5 minutes. Following that, we give the applicant an opportunity for rebuttal if they wish. Applicants would have 5 minutes to provide any rebuttal or additional comments if they wish to address to the board. Following that, we'll provide an opportunity for one person who spoke with questions, concerns, or opposition to the project to come forward and have the last say. And that individual would also have up to 5 minutes. Given that it's only one person, if there are multiple people who spoke, we'd give you the opportunity to discuss amongst yourselves who that person might be. Following that, we will close the public hearing and open the deliberations of the board. The board may choose to act on the applications this evening, or if necessary, we may choose to continue it to a future date, typically because there's additional information that's needed. So with that, I'm going to read the first case into the record, but I am going to note that the first case, which is the application of the City of Nashua through Chief Steve Buxton, Nashua Fire Rescue. I am sorry, I forgot roll call. I will call roll call. Mr. Neely.
Present.
Mr. Shaw.
Present.
Mr. Lionel.
Present.
Mr. Patry.
Present.
And Jay Mankara, I am present. And I should have also noted that to my left is Deputy Planning Manager Carter Falk. So with that, again, I'll start with reading the first case into the record. This is the City of Nashua, the owner of the property, through Chief Steve Buxton, Nashua Fire Rescue, the applicant for 25 Teak Drive and 840 West Hollis Street. And actually, I'm going to skip on down because we have already made a determination, the Dover v. Fisher determination. So this is requesting a special exception from Land Use Code Section 190-112 to work in a 40-foot other wetland and wetland buffer to construct a water line service from Teak Drive to the Four Hills landfill property for the proposed fire training facility. This is in the R9 and R30 zones in Ward 5. So I'm going to note this was tabled from the January 13 meeting. So the public hearing had already been open. I know many people had the opportunity to speak. We had asked the applicant to really address a couple of pretty specific technical issues on the water line, including looking at the possibility of boring the water line, which had been raised in some of the input that we had received. So we are going to provide the applicant the opportunity to address really primarily what has changed in the application and how the concerns that were raised have been addressed. I don't think there's a need, unless you wish, to go back through the entire presentation. We will then open it up to the audience once again to provide input. Just note that the input that you previously provided is a part of the record. So ideally, we just ask that you try not to repeat yourselves and kind of address the new information that we've received. So with that, assume you are here speaking on behalf of the applicant.
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, good evening. Andy Perlman with Pernier and Perlman here in Nashua, here on behalf of the City of Nashua and Nashua Fire Rescue. With me tonight is Brendan Quigley, our wetland soil scientist, Dan Hudson, city engineer. Both Brendan and Dan will speak a little bit on the new plan. Chief Buxton is here if the board has any questions for the fire department. A couple preliminary matters. Did you get the Concom letter?
We did.
Okay, I have a handout for the board. Mr. Chairman, members, the handout that's coming your way provides a copy of the new plan. I'm sure you've got it, but you have it in paper in front of you. Since we were here last time, Mr. Chairman, we have also received DES approval for the wetland impact, the temporary wetland impact, I should say, and also in your packet is a letter from Pennachuck Water explaining the 8-inch water line is going to be sufficient for the 2 hydrants that will serve the fire training facility. The Concom letter that you have received is the 3rd time Conservation Commission has taken a look at this site, and it's the 3rd time the Conservation Commission has given a favorable recommendation. There are conditions of approval with which we agree. We have no issues with the conditions of approval. This is going to be an abbreviated presentation, Mr. Chair, as you suggested, because the new plan, which we are calling the honorary Robert Shaw Waterline Plan, because it works. You can see that the new plan comes off of Teak and does a quick turn and heads over to where the original, one of the crossings were, and then it has that wetland impact and then continues into the woods, toward the fire training facility. The previous plan, that was a straight shot coming off of Teak, had a temporary wetland impact of 400 square feet. The new plan that you see before you tonight has a temporary wetland impact of 195 square feet. So the temporary wetland impact went down. The trade-off, however, is that the temporary buffer impact went up. The prior plan, that straight shot, had a temporary buffer impact of 2,075 square feet. Today's plan has a temporary buffer impact of 4,727 square feet. And I say temporary because this is proposed to be a trench, install the pipe, and then backfill, and then with the backfill, there'll be native seeding, according to Concom, and then everything will grow back over time. The trench itself, it's roughly a 20-foot cut. Concom wanted us to minimize the tree cutting itself, which we agreed to do. The trench itself is roughly 4 to 5 feet wide, 5 to 6 feet deep to get below the frost line, and then the 8-inch line will be installed and then backfilled. So the plan works. There was a question, or actually I kind of raised the point. I was a little concerned about this route because we're a little bit closer to the vernal pools. Mr. Quigley will speak to that. There was a lot of discussion, you'll hear it again tonight, that this horizontal directional drilling is a possible answer. It's a non-starter for the city. The city has looked at it, taken a good hard look. Dan Hudson will speak to that point. And I'll follow up with any additional response or questions from the board. Mr. Chairman, you had our full presentation last time. I'm not going to recite the criteria for the special exception. We have the criteria In the application, we have the criteria for, in general, under 190-134F, the criteria, and then you have the special exception criteria, which we believe that we have addressed, and we have compromised a couple times now with the neighborhood. We believe this is a good response. What I particularly like about this this plan is that the cut itself takes a quick turn. It cuts in off a teak. You can see where it comes in right by the intersection, and then it makes a quick turn. And the effect of that is that you won't see the actual most of the cutting that you see on this plan, because the visual effect will be you'll get a little bit of a cut in front of you, and then it turns, and then it really goes away. You won't see it. The trench itself, as it proceeds toward the fire training facility, is going to be dug out, and it's going to be jackhammered anywhere where there's some ledge. Mr. Hudson believes the ledge is deep enough, so there will be no blasting, and it really, as it moves up the hill, it'll just be the trench cut all the way to the fire training facility. And unless the board had any questions for me, that's my brief presentation. I was going to turn it over to Mr. Quigley to speak to the wetland and vernal pool issues, and Mr. Hudson for the directional boring. So thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Pearl. Mr. Quigley.
Good evening. Brendan Quigley, wetland scientist with GOV Environmental Services here in Exeter, New Hampshire. I'll try to keep my comments brief and focused on what I believe is the wetland aspect of this, specifically the trade-off between those impacts that was just discussed. I do believe that this is a good compromise to address some of the other concerns that are not specifically wetland related. And as far as the trade-off for having greater impact to buffer and also within the vernal pool buffer, there's a couple of things that I think mitigate that potential effect of those impacts. One is that the initial proposal of the driveway that represented a permanent structure that was a potential barrier in the vernal pool buffer to the movement of wildlife. Those impacts, those vernal pool concerns this was much more of a concern in that context than these temporary impacts that are proposed now. These are areas that will be essentially, after the work is completed, be returned to a natural condition, and it won't represent any kind of barrier to movement or endanger vernal pool species that might be in that area any more than what's there now. The second thing is that this buffer area, while it still does have value to the wetland and to the vernal pool, it's much less quality habitat than would be present in the forested area on the other side of the vernal pool opposite Teak Drive. So these areas essentially next to the road, these are already kind of disturbed forested areas. They don't have a lot of habitat for vernal pool species that utilize the forested areas around pools. It's essentially a disturbed area. There's a sort of a berm feature between what would have been, that's the impact that the wetland impact that's being avoided was to a drainage feature. And this is sort of the berm that forms the other side of that, the other side being against Teak Drive. So this is what we discussed with the Conservation Commission, and I think the correspondence reflects that they agreed with that. Essentially that a slightly greater impact given these other considerations is a reasonable proposal in this case.
Questions from the board? Mr. Neely.
The application to the DES, Were you working on that application, or who?
Yes, yep.
So really, my question is, when you sent in the application to DES, was that a quick process? Did they kick it back at you with a bunch of questions? Because I've worked with DES in the past. They're not easy to get them to give it one of these permits. So I want to know if they kind of heard what you said tonight and they approved it pretty quickly. Was it a back and forth for months?
There was some back and forth. Of course, we started with a driveway, which a lot of their questions, I think it's fair to say, were related to the fact that that was a much different impact. Once that was revised to the initial water line only, so to speak, proposal, a lot of the questions went away. So you're correct that they can be very difficult, and I'd say thorough in what their reviews are looking to get at. But in this case, I'd put it maybe on the medium scale. So right now, the approval is for the water line coming straight off the road. We'll have to probably address that, an amendment with them for if this were to be approved here.
Other questions from the board? Mr. Patry.
Mr. Quigley, do you have a sense of where on the plan so assuming we were to approve this and assuming we adopt the requirement for the 12,000-foot conservation easement, do you have a sense of where on the plan that would be?
Basically, everything, if I get my compass directions right, on the other side of the wetland and vernal pool specifically, that is forested right now.
So towards Teak Drive, am I reading the map right? Or
away from Teak Drive.
away from Teak Drive, okay.
I mean, there's not much towards Teak Drive. The body of the wetland and the vernal pool that we're discussing here goes right up to the edge of an embankment, essentially, that forms Teak Drive. Okay. The forested area away from that.
Okay, thank you.
Other questions from the board? I do have one. So if I understand correctly, the prior plan had more of a wetland impact and less of a buffer impact. This plan has less of a wetland impact and more of a buffer impact. Would you say that this plan has less of an overall impact, or is it about the same, or is it a greater overall impact?
I'd say it's about the same. That's sort of what I was trying to get across in my comments to both you and the Conservation Commission, was that clearly we do have more buffer impact here. We also have less wetland impact. But the nature of the wetland in this case that's being avoided, while valuable and good, avoidance is always good, it's not particularly it's not a particularly valuable wetland.
Right.
Nor is the buffer area. So given the other concerns, I mean, these questions of avoidance and minimization and practicability always come down to what is possible, and given the other concerns that relate to the project. In this case, it's the concerns of the neighborhood, which we're trying to address by mitigating the potential viewpoint impacts. So all those things considered, yes, I think it's about equal.
Thank you.
Good evening. Again, for the record, I'm Dan Hudson, the city engineer. And my task here is to speak about horizontal directional drilling, or HDD. There's a lot of discussion at the Concom meeting about that, and I'm sure the board has questions about it as well. The city is familiar with HDD. We've used it before in cases where we couldn't directly trench to install something. Most recently, we did that under the Nashua River between Campton Street and Shore Drive. Obviously, you can't trench, you gotta drill across the river, or go under the river. We used it under East Hall Street on the roadway approach to Taylor Falls Bridge. There, we were gonna have to dig through the roadway, 15 feet deep through a busy traveled corridor. That doesn't make any sense. We were able to drill through the embankment fairly easily in that case to install some electrical conduit that we needed to install. So we do have experience with it. But I do submit that the cost for it is highly dependent on what the conditions are, and specifically the subsurface conditions. Obviously, drilling through rock is much more expensive than drilling through sandy soils, that sort of thing. I'll speak more to that in a minute. But in order to contract a driller properly, you would need to characterize what those underground conditions are. You do that by using a drill rig. Usually on off-pavement areas, it's a track drill rig. You trim trees, clear trees, whatever you gotta do to get the drill rig in, drill some probes, find out where the surface of ledge is, drill down into the rock to determine what the character of the rock is in case you have to drill through rock. So that activity or that exploration activity in and of itself can be impactful. And I will say that HDD contracts, they put all the risk on the person contracting the work. So every contract I've seen says if they try to drill 2 times and they can't get through, then they're going to renegotiate the contract. So unless you really know what you're dealing with underground, you're submitting yourself to a lot of risk by entertaining those activities. In cases where you need to control the grade really well, it's not a good tool for that. In this case, it's a water line. That's less important. The pipe can come up and down a little bit, and it's not a major issue like it would be with a sewer line or something like that. There's more complex inspection testing requirements for HDD because you're drilling a hole and then you're pulling a pipe back through it. So typically that's done by fusing up HDPE pipe. So those fused joints, you got to inspect that as you go. As you pull it back, you got to be careful about not pulling it too quickly and that sort of thing because you induce stress on the pipe. So it requires additional testing, additional expertise to oversee that whole process, which adds to the cost. Specific to Teague Drive, and when we did look at it and we've considered it. We're not aware of any case. I mean, we know the neighborhood is very opposed to any tree cutting. I'm not aware of any case anywhere where anybody has required HDD to avoid some tree cutting. I've never heard of that. I've never seen that. Again, primarily because of the cost issues I spoke to. The city can self-perform the trench and installation of the water line. We have the expertise in-house. We have the equipment. We might need to rent a hammer, like was spoken to, if we need to hammer a little bit of ledge if it's in the way. But we can do that work ourselves. We're not going out and contracting somebody to do it at hundreds of thousands of dollars. We can do it in-house. So the HDD is an added cost that we wouldn't incur otherwise. Installing it via trench method is predictable, lower cost. We can control the quality better. We can put the pipe in the ground. We can locate exactly where we put the pipe. We can make sure it's bedded in good material. And then that makes future emergency repairs or maintenance easier. If we directionally drill a pipe, we know about where it is. But if if the pipe blows and we got a gusher, we got to dig, we got to find where the pipe is and that sort of thing. And it's not as well controlled as basically doing the trenching method. And again, just back to the cost exposure, that can be significant. We did reach out to a driller to get some planning level cost estimates, and from what we can see, it would be anywhere from $150,000 to $550,000. The $150,000 would be for drilling in sandy soils. $550,000 would be for drilling through rock. Having said that, we did some test pitting on the landfill side. We didn't do any test pitting down in the buffer areas, but on the landfill side, and ledge was running about 5.5 to 7.5 feet. from the surface. We can excavate down, find the ledge, lay the pipe almost on that ledge, backfill. We get 5.5 feet of cover or so, which is typical for water line, and we're good to go. Trying to set up and drill, though, would be problematic because we can't really drill right along that ledge interface. I believe we would need to drill through rock just to make sure that we were deep enough and the drill wasn't bouncing around, wasn't going somewhere we didn't want it to go. So for all those reasons, I submit that we don't think HDD is a good option in this case. I would go even further to say, I think it qualifies under the undue hardship. Why should the city spend that money, taxpayer money? Average do two numbers, $250,000, $300,000, whatever, somewhere in there. Why should the city incur that expense so that we don't have to, cut a temporary cut there to install a water line? We just don't think it makes sense in this case. I'd be happy to address any questions.
Questions from the board? Mr. Shaw?
It is one thing I wanted to clarify, and it almost seems like there's a bit of a catch-22 here from what you said as far as the prep evaluation would require tree cutting and working in the wetland. So there'd almost be another whole application to address that, but ultimately, if part of the HDD, it would be to not have to work in the wetlands, but especially not take trees down, then it seems like this doesn't even necessarily help that possibility of.
Yeah, I would, in response, I would just say, I'm not going to submit that it would be equivalent tree cutting, maybe less, maybe there's some trimming versus some tree removals, because if a tree's right over the water line, we can't have that there, but maybe we can get around it with a drill rig. So I don't want to say that those efforts will be equivalent, but I do want to make it known that there would need to be some exploration. I certainly wouldn't support doing an HDD job without doing the geotech work, because you're just rolling the dice. You don't know what you're into, and you're exposing the city to tremendous risk.
Thank you.
Other questions from the board? Mr. Neely?
Two questions, Mr. Hudson. So it sounds to me like best case scenario is if we went with HDD, it's an extra $150,000 to the bottom line of this project, right? Best case scenario.
That's my current estimate.
Okay.
But yes, based upon the quote we got and some general costing, my assumptions about some costing about what engineering and some engineering support and some testing support and some geotechnical investigation, I believe it would be best case $150,000.
Okay, and last question, the 20-foot wide tree clearing, that's worst case scenario, right? That's just enough, that's basically enough room so the tractors can spin and do what they got to do. But I mean, we're not talking like it's 20 feet, maybe it's 25, maybe 30. I mean, 20 is like worst case scenario, right?
Yeah, that is the intent. I mean, those excavators, they're good size. You got to get in, you got to maneuver, get where you need. You dig along your alignment. In this case, we're basically moving material, setting over to the side. So, you need some room to do that, and then put the pipe in and bed it and all that, and put the material back. We're kind of back to existing condition, right? So, yeah, you need a little room to work, and we're trying to be honest and open about what we think we need for work, for room to work. And I think that's a reasonable request. I wouldn't want to go less. I would love to go more, but we're willing to commit to the 20 feet.
Thank you.
Other questions from the board? Mr. Patrick?
Mr. President, approximately how long do you think it would take to dig the trench by normal, for the city to do it?
Well, that's a fair question. I think we could, of course, the trench goes all the way into the landfill site, but I'm presuming we're talking about the area, of subject here, which is the, within the buffer area. But, I believe we could do the clearing in, a few days, come back and do the excavation water line install through that area. Probably, within a couple weeks. I don't want to commit our forces to a timeline per se, but that's my estimation of it.
Thank you.
And just for the record, I read I looked through the packet. There was a lot of discussion about a road. There is no road here. There's no proposed road. We had that. We stepped back. We're just doing a water line. We're following the existing ground, restoring the existing ground. We're not building a gravel road. We're not doing anything like that. We have no plans for access here. Just trying to dispel all those rumors or confusion that I've seen in the public testimony.
Any other questions from the board? Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, I believe that ends the testimony from the applicants. So I am now going to open it up to anybody in the audience who wishes to speak in favor of the application.
Could I speak against it, because I have to go downstairs for another meeting? Could you accommodate?
Yes, you may.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it. I've been running up and down. Thank you very much. My name is Paula Johnson. I'm Alderman for Ward 5, and I appreciate you accommodating me. First of all, I hear what's Mr. Hudson said, and I didn't hear everything because I was downstairs. We had to do pictures tonight, group pictures. I still have a lot of concerns here. I did take a walk through and a drive through the landfill today. And the only way you really can see it is by, visually doing a walk through, a drive through. I know where the training is now, and I see where the training's going to be, and it's going to get closer to the neighborhood. And I do wonder, when they do the burn and when they do the fire training, if any smoke or anything's going to get into the neighborhood. And I think we have to take a look at that and think about that. There's nothing that we're saying that we don't want to do anything for our fire department, because they're the best out there. We have the best fire and rescue. But I think we have to take a look at the neighborhood. We can't do HDD drilling because of the cost factor. I understand the cost factor. But you're going in, you're going to be taking down trees. And yes, right now, there isn't a lot to see, but, in the spring and the fall, there's a lot to see. Will that piece of roadway, that 20-foot trench, and then you're going to supposedly fill it in, is that really going to conform to the neighborhood at this point in time? I'm going to say no, because there's nothing there right now. You got the vernal pool, and you do have endangered species there, which I'm trying to go through my notes to see where they are. You have the eastern box turtle, and you have the eastern hognose snake, which is endangered. And I talked about that the first time when I came in here. And so now you have this neighborhood, you're gonna go in there, you're gonna take trees down, we're gonna plant some trees and make it better looking, but it's never gonna be the same. We all know it's never gonna be the same. So the question is going to be, can you do HDD drilling up until you get the ledge, and that when you're getting higher up, then go in there and maybe do the other type of trenching, which is further away from the neighborhood as you hit the ledge. Now, I was listening to this, and, could there be a compromise? Yes, there could be, but I don't think it's right to go in there and just start bulldozing that neighborhood, because you have to make enough room, 20 feet, for an excavator to go in there. So I think there has to be some kind of a decision that it's not going to do any harm to this neighborhood, and also the vernal pool with those endangered species. So I've been doing this and working with them since before I wasn't even an alderman, and now I see all the plans in front, and I don't see where it's really getting better, other than you're not putting the roadway in, which is great. But you're still going to go in there, and it's not going to conform with the neighborhood, what they have right now. And these residents are scared, because I think it's always, and it's sad to say, that the city has to hire a lawyer, and then the lawyer come before the board to fight against the residents who pay the taxes to pay the lawyers and to pay the workers in the city. That's all it comes down to all the time. We're always fighting to save something and preserve our neighborhoods. And it shouldn't be this way. And maybe if the fire department sat down with the residents and made a round table and they all worked together, maybe there wouldn't be so much confrontation that it always winds up coming to the zoning board and the planning board. And I really think it's sad what's going on here. And I do not believe that by putting the pipe, once you go in there and you start excavating and removing trees, and there's going to be quite a few trees coming down, and I did a drive-through today in the wintertime, there's going to be quite a few coming down, and it's definitely not going to conform with that neighborhood anymore. But I thank you for allowing me to come and talk at the beginning. Thank you.
Thank you. So now I'll ask once again if there's anybody in the audience who wishes to speak in favor of the application. Seeing none, is there anybody in the audience who wishes to speak with questions, concerns, or opposition to the application?
Good evening, members. I'm Rody Arantes from 3 Jolori Lane. And I just wanted to touch on a few key points from the applicant. Once again, we're back to the favorable recommendation, on not really facts, but at this point, by being there a couple times, I can tell you that if the fire department came in and said that they no longer need to put a road, they're going to put a walkway, and they can put a parking lot on top of the vernal pool, they would still approve it because the city needs something, and they would just do it for the fire department. They have no regard for the environment at all there, so it really does not matter what we say and what we propose there. If you look at the quote that I got for the HDD, I submitted that a while back. You can see that it was actually for 250 feet, my original request. I sent that in because we wanted to make a compromise and say, hey, do the first 250 feet using the HDD because it's going to be really expensive according to you. When it came back, it was actually cheaper than what they're proposing to do, the cost of the city can do for the actual trenching. So that's why I have been saying, why don't we just do the whole thing? It's going to cost less. They do it in less time because they don't have to open the trench. They don't have to repair anything before and after. They don't have to destroy the wetlands. They don't have to cut trees. They don't have to do anything. They literally come in, they do they bore and they put the pipe through. There's literally, in my mind, I don't even know why we keep having these discussions over and over. This is clearly a worse plan. The plan that they propose is a worse plan than the original one that kept the road away from the vernal pool. We took out the road, the pipe was there. That was actually what was approved by the NHDES, as you heard him say before. It wasn't this plan right now by going next to the vernal pool. They're talking about how they took a hard look at the proposal to do the HDD. When we were at the Conservation Commission, the lawyer literally said that he walked by Dan Hudson that day and just asked him if it would be possible. And he just said, nope, it's going to be between 200 and 600,000. They're just spinning up prices and costs, and they have no idea. Everything that you heard tonight literally started with could and would and maybe. There was no fact. They're just making up. I mean, one of the last points that he made was that it requires expertise. Yes, of course it requires expertise. Anything that you're going to do requires expertise, and that's what we hope. And another point that he brought up was that HDD has never been used in protected areas. Yes, it has, and I have talked with a couple of companies because I have been calling around to see, but it's never been used in Nashua because we live in the 80s in an era where the environment didn't matter. Right, and now it does matter, and that's what we should be thinking about, is how we can protect whatever is left of our conserved areas in the city, the conservation area that we have left that is so little. We have that buffer that is now going to be damaged and taken out. We have to deal constantly with sounds from gunshots from the inside of the landfill. We have to deal with various smells during the summer when they do their mulching. We deal with that lasts the whole week there. We know that the air that is coming from that site stays in our area because the smells from the mulch stay there. Another thing that I would like to mention is, how can we trust Dan Hudson, right? And when he came here last time and he told you that a fire truck driving by our neighborhood would be just the same as driving the garbage collection truck, right? And I have done some research on that, and it's actually about 10,000 times the damage to the road, a pass from a fire truck versus a car. So the roads have to really be built to support that consistent traffic if you're going to be doing that on a regular day. And he came here and told you guys that this was a fact. Another thing is Mr. Quigley here came here and said that the habitat quality, and I'm quoting him, the highest rank habitat in the region. That was the rating, and this was in the ZBA of October 2025. Right now, he said it's a marginal habitat, it's low quality, it's damaged, and what we're looking at here is we're going to have them come in, damage it. 5 years from now, they're going to come back and say, oh, it's damaged, we can just open the road now. We can do this because it has changed enough, right? There was enough of a change, enough of an impact to the environment that now it's no longer pristine, right? And last time I stayed here after, and there was a whole meeting after talking about how not pristine the wetlands were, and that you could approve putting some, doing the project and building that house, which was after our hearing, right? And
You are
the-
just
the-
about out of time, so you might want to wrap up.
And the word that the lawyer used was, it doesn't matter. He didn't say that it doesn't matter, but he literally said, the wetlands are not pristine, so it's okay to do that job there, right? And this is what we're looking at, because in a few years, 2-3 years, we're going to move on to the next project. The city will come back and say, oh, it's damaged, it's no longer pristine. We can now proceed with what we wanted originally. Thank you.
Is there anybody else who wishes to speak?
Hi, I'm Nancy Kring-Burns. I live at 5 Brayburn Drive. So I'm not directly impacted by this, but what bothers me is the intrusion into an existing neighborhood that's been there for so long. And if you do it to this neighborhood, you could do it to any neighborhood, some kind of project that doesn't serve the neighbors. And apparently, there's property that the city owns on Ridge Road that wouldn't impact neighbors and might be better suited to this type of project because there's more land, there's room for expansion of whatever the fire department would need for training purposes. And the fire department should be commended for the wonderful work that happened at that explosion last week. I'm so sorry you had to even deal with it. That was horrible. But, so the environment, yes. But the impact on the neighborhood, you know, we all put our heart and soul into our neighborhood. And having a disruption like this that isn't critical, isn't essential, is just wrong. And where there's an alternative site, and maybe that's been looked at, I haven't seen anything that it has been totally looked at. I would prefer that it not be in a neighborhood because you could be putting, I don't know, some kind of training field in my backyard. So that's all. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Is there anybody else who wishes to speak?
Evening, gentlemen. Mike LaRock, 22 Teague Drive, as you know, directly across from the proposed entrance to this, although based on respectfully Mr. Shaw's idea of let's see if we can move it down here, and I'd be okay with that at the last meeting. It would be just down the street. How can you deny what they're saying? How could you possibly think about going forward with this exception when you've just heard those arguments? Same plan with more detrimental factors. Just wanted to recap. Have you all taken a look at the website? Did you go through that was put together? Good. 5-0 was denied in the past. What could have changed to get 3 of you or 4 of you to vote in the affirmative tonight? I just don't see it. With a plan that's the same with more detrimental facts. A lot of congestion in the neighborhood, doesn't think it meets the criteria. Board doesn't feel that 2 of the criteria met. It's always a tough decision when we have a full neighborhood show up to make a decision like this. The number of trucks that are going to be using that area for the fire training facility with an open border like that through a buffer, what do? You open your window when you want to hear things, see things, smell things. Now we're just going to have a gateway right down to our neighborhood, unused. But it's a road, 20-foot wide. It's a road. He said there was some confusion about being a road. It's like doing a construction project and leaving your materials behind. That road's going to be there and people are going to want to use it. They'll be in there checking the condition of the pipes. They'll be in there checking the conditions of any growth. So in your own words, people, there's no reason that you should be able to have any idea of something a positive thought to override. They talked about, maybe not the HDD solution. People don't want the road. So what makes it right for the neighborhood then? Somewhere else, especially given the fact that the NFD has already admitted in their own words that we could get along where we are currently. We'll work it out. and your sense of urgency perhaps on the DPW side to get that construction project done, that shouldn't have to do with us. But I don't want any preordained decision tonight to move that project along, to move the NFD fire training facility over to this area, which impacts us. It was said in the past that the city of Nashua had its landfill problems, and they've had them for years, and you've always tried to contain it and assure people that the entrance will be from the West Hollis Street side. This isn't the West Hollis Street side. You're not talking about the traffic that was originally proposed, and we appreciate that. But a road is a road, and people are going to want to use it. Whether it's motorcyclists, bikers, hikers, or a public service truck, Nashua Utilities, somebody will be using that road. So with all the criteria that you denied this for based on the first meeting, I just don't think there's anything over there tonight that we've heard as far as an updated plan. And the point was well taken that what was a high-impact vernal pool, the Concom Commission can't be near that at all. You've got to go up the street. Now they're saying it's not an issue. Let's go right through it. The word intent was used when you asked about, is it going to be a 20-foot road or is it going to be 25 and 30? His words were, our intent is 20 feet wide. What if it is 25? What if it happens to need to be 30? Nothing's been assured in this, and there cannot be any guarantees, if you've seen my previous memos to you guys, that tells us what's not going to happen tomorrow, or the next day, or the next day. You can't assure us anything. You've had concerns about valuations of property. Will it happen? Could happen. I moved in there because there wasn't all those intrusions. Will somebody else want to move in there if there's a road right there? You can't tell us, you can guarantee that it wouldn't be. That's pretty much all I got to say. I just want you to, again, have your faith, do your job, say this isn't right for this neighborhood. Because 5 out of all of you last time said this isn't right for the neighborhood. Nothing makes it right for the neighborhood, even so now. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anybody else who wishes to provide comment?
Hi, all. I'm Hannah Nedsbala. I'm in Westgate Village. Years ago, the DPW had not covered over some of the garbage dumping they did close to us. Every morning, we would smell the fumes from that DPW site and the garbage that smelled and the seagulls that would fly around. But not only that, when there's fire facility coming and training and more and more companies come in, that's going to mean who's going to police it? Who's going to see what they're burning and what the environmental issue with the air pollution? A lot of people have breathing issues, and that can be pretty much a hard thing to take. Not only that, but this is residential. It's not way out in the open. People's property values are going to go down, even in Westgate. And we don't want that. It's not plausible to be at Teak or any place else, but as this other lady mentioned, there is the Ridge Road site that might be better. I don't know. But that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else?
Hi again, George Sturgeon, 15 Cimarron Drive. So I'm not going to repeat a whole bunch of stuff. I would point out that I think last meeting, you all were pretty much leaning toward denying that application because they hadn't really looked at other options. You didn't, you tabled it. You gave them a design option and they went and pretty much designed it and presented it tonight. So I really feel like you were going to deny it last time. A hot mic moment at the break sort of indicated that that was the case too. That being said, they took your idea, and so now they've sort of met that criteria. So there's less of a chance to deny here, except for the neighborhood. And there's clearly going to be an impact to the neighborhood. There are also other options. 17 Ridge was mentioned. For me, that's a discussion for another day, when the fire training, capital improvement thing comes forward. Because there are other options rather than moving it closer to Teak. For water, 2 fire hydrants. The DPW, they're going to have a car wash there, from what I saw. I mean, there's going to be, I don't know why they can't tap into the DPWs. I Googled some fire training facility water stuff. Some of them use water towers to totally support the water needs of their fire training facilities. I don't know how feasible that is, but you know, there are other water options rather than bothering the neighborhood, the wetland, and that kind of stuff. Paula had brought up sort of a hybrid HDD approach, which I think is interesting because you can use HDD, so you're not bothering the wetland, you're not dredging, you're not downing trees permanently, all that stuff. That's something that I think has legs. So HDD till you hit the ledge or the rock that's over by the dump. And if the city wants to dredge there, let them. But at least stipulate HDD here, because you're not disturbing wetlands hardly at all. And you're not permanently downing trees or a whole bunch of trees. It won't disturb any wildlife in there. There was some discussion about cost. I feel it's largely cost neutral. We came up with an actual quote. I don't know what the city did. I think they made a phone call and got some rough order of magnitude numbers. I don't believe that in our quote there was an increased cost to go through rock. I'm just making that point, because the city brought up that it would be much more expensive to do that. But in that hybrid approach, you could choose to blast and lay pipe over on the landfill side if you wanted. So I think stipulating HDD, giving the city an option that once they're through the wetland, if they choose to do something to dredge and blast and lay pipe over there that way, you know, that's a true compromise. This isn't a compromise. It's an idea that somebody came up with that the city implemented, then they went and took a harder look at HDD to counter it, where they could have done it last meeting and they didn't, because they knew that's where we were going. That's what we preferred if this is going to be approved. So I would ask you to still deny it. But if you're not going to, I would ask you to stipulate HDD drilling, at least through the wetlands, that hybrid, I call it a hybrid approach, but, and then give the city the option to do what they want on the other side.
And you are just about out of time, so if you want to wrap up. Is there anybody else who wishes to speak? Seeing none, I'm going to give an opportunity for the applicants to provide any rebuttal that they wish. You have 5 minutes.
Mr. Chairman, members, Andy Perlman. Excuse me. 3 points, Mr. Chairman. Don't forget that Concom looked at this 3 times. They had a site walk, and for each time they have their meeting, they have a thorough discussion, and with the road and water line impact, they approved it. With just the water line, but the straight shot, they approved it, and then this last week they approved it again, and this last week was actually unanimous. So it's hard to say that Concom doesn't take a good look at environmental issues. The second point I want to just hammer home is that the impacts that we have to the temporary buffer impact and the temporary wetland impact are temporary. We dig the trench, it's going to grow back. But The third point I want to make, Mr. Arantes and Mr. LaRock really said it. They said their opposition is, they have a fear of future road. It's a road. It's not a road. It can't be a road because you folks denied a road. And if the city were to come back years down the line and want to install a road, they would be hit with the Fisher versus Dover roadblock right off the bat. It cannot be a road unless there's some dramatic change, right? But there is not a road going in here. Dan Hudson spoke to that. We've said in the past, since it was denied, the road was denied, we can't have a road going in here. 20-foot cut, it's going to trench in and then fill in over time. I think it's a reasonable request of the city. I believe we've met the criteria under the ordinance. So I thank you very much.
Thank you. Oh, I'm sorry. We do have a question, Mr. Bull.
Sorry, Counselor, it's probably more for Mr. Hudson. We've had some folks asking now for the, start as the HDD and then go trenching after you're in, 100 feet. Is it still cost prohibitive doing that?
Yes, and a couple things. There was an assertion that the city hadn't gotten a quote. We did get a quote. It did have a range. It had $150 per foot for sand or normal soil, $600 per foot through rock, and I think Mr. Perlman spoke to that previously too. But anyway, I just want to clear that up. Question was, does it make sense to drill, a shorter distance? Yes, that could reduce the cost some, but the thought process I had was if you're going to drill, we would want to probably come in from the landfill side, be at the top of the hill, and then drill from there. If we tried to shorten the distance, we'd probably have to move over and drill from the teak side. We'd have to set up the drill rig in the road, close the road. We'd have to dig a pit there so that we could launch that drill and drill the other direction, and then we'd be left part way up the hill. So I just don't think it makes sense. I think if you're going to incur that much expense, it doesn't scale down perfectly, right? Like, yes, you drill shorter distance, it's less money, but you still have to bring the drill rig out. You still have to do all the preparatory work. You still have to do the investigation work, the geotech investigation work. So I just don't think that makes sense. We still are talking about, if we're going to do that, even when I submit the $500,000, that still would be a hybrid approach. We would drill a portion of it, and then we would trench on the landfill property where we're outside, any wooded area that anybody can see and things like that. So, we tried to obtain a HDD quote that we thought would be reasonable for what you would do if you were going to do it that way. But again, we don't recommend that.
Other questions for the applicant? Seeing none. So we are going to provide the opportunity for one person who spoke with questions, concerns, or opposition to address the board. If you know who that is, great. If you want to take a few minutes and deliberate amongst yourselves, that's fine also. You've got the mic.
Again, Road Arantes, 3 Jewelry Lane. I wanted to say that the quote is from the company that they used on the sites that they used, HDD. That's the company that I went to because I wanted to make sure that I matched what they used before. I didn't want to come up with another random company. Once again, we're here discussing a project with a problem that shouldn't exist, right? We have all talked about this at length with all the extra complications that this new facility is going to cause. The reason we're here today is that we're putting 2 fire hydrants in the middle of nowhere, because this is what this project is, right? Because we don't have any idea what the new facility is going to be. We are rushing this. The reason the pipe reduced size, it's because the city actually halved the size of the amount of water that they needed. They went from about 3,500 gallons per minute that they wanted to 2,000. That's why the engineer from Pennachuck reduced the size of the pipe. So it shows just poor planning. There's no planning. They're just rushing this. There's no need to rush the pipe if there's no facility. Why would they need? So why not come up with a proper package, put everything together, and propose a proper plan? We're here talking about compromise. There was no compromise, as some people have already said, right? The first proposal was not a compromise. The second proposal, moving the site over, was not a compromise. Nothing has been a compromise. They hide the plans until they come up here and they give you the sheet, right? They don't provide any of the information beforehand. I have been doing a lot of research on my own to try to find information about this, to try to put it out there so that other people can be informed. I created a full website the other day just to give you guys information on everything that has happened in just the 4 or 5 meetings that we have had here. How much it's only for the city to, it's 12 different other companies that are coming from outside to be able to use on a regular basis that is going to make that site just a constant area of activity. It was supposed to be maybe once or twice a month. Now it's every single day there's going to be someone using that site. And we're going to be the ones in the neighborhood with all the smoke, all the PFAS in the air, all the contamination on the ground that we haven't even touched today, because that was right now the whole job there to redo the new facility for the garage is on hold. It has been completely stopped because they cannot continue because there's PFAS on the ground caused by the fire department activity there. And then we're putting this new facility less than 100 feet away from some other areas that could be protected areas too. They're right on that zone, and they are wetlands, but they are not vernal pools, and they could be very well vernal pools, and that's one of the requests that I'm going to be making to the NHDES so that they can provide us that additional protection for the future, because it's not right for it to be there in the first place. So to close this, I would like to bring up the 5 criteria, right? And I want to make sure that I cover that here because we're closing this now, and I'm hoping that you guys have heard enough and you understand the impact that this is going to have on the neighborhood, on the house prices, all over that whole section of the city, because we're going to be putting this facility there. We're now cutting these trees. That's going to open the buffer that we had from the landfill. It's open, right? We're going to cut that. It's going to be open. And that is not a temporary thing, like they keep saying. It is not temporary. It's 20 feet. They put that. And also, if you look at the documents that I posted on the website, but I also submitted in, they are on their funding request. That is still a road. That never changed. That is still a road. So they might say that it's not now. I'm telling you, 2-3 years from now, they have the funds already. They will be approved because they're part of the funding. And then we're going to be back here talking about how this was not supposed to even happen, and now we have a request for a road.
You do have less than a minute, so you might want to wrap up.
I thought you said 15 minutes for closing.
It's 5 minutes for the closing.
So not contrary to the public interest. It is very contrary to the public interest. We buy our houses there because we think that we can live in a neighborhood that is quiet, that does not have any kind of disturbances in the wetlands. Like when I moved there, that was the main thing that I noticed. It was how close to the neighborhood the environment was. And I could see animals, the first few times that I went there to look at the house, I saw animals just crossing the road, deer crossing the road right there. There's a large activity of animals there.
And you are almost out of time.
Yep.
Got a few seconds left.
I would just focus on the house pricing. I think that's going to cause a lot of damage to the people that bought their houses 34 years ago, and they have been living there for a while. And we're here destroying the neighborhood and impacting the air quality and the actual quality of life for everyone in the neighborhood. And Ward 5, 8, and 9 will be impacted by the PFAS in the air by 15 times more than what they're producing right now directly into the neighborhoods.
Okay. Thank you for your comments. So we are now going to close the public hearing, and we are going to open up the deliberations of the board. Thoughts from the board?
I guess I'll start.
Mr. Neely.
By process of elimination. So there's a lot going on. As you know, there's been we received a ton of information from the neighbors. We've had quite a bit of testimony from members of the city, from the councilor. I know we've all done drive-bys. So I want to attack this from a couple different directions here. I am very sensitive to when a neighborhood is locked together against a project. And, I was one of those folks that voted 5-0 to deny the road. Road's not coming back. There's no road, can't be a road. It's a Fisher v. Dover. It'd have to come by us again. And the criteria to get by us on Fisher v. Dover is relatively high. And the reason for that, and just for folks in the audience, is the point of Fisher v. Dover is not to allow it to come up every time there's a change on the board or if somebody's out sick. The point of Fisher v. Dover is it has to be a significant difference to the application. So the road's not coming. So any discussion about a road is not valid here. While it is going to be cut the width of a road, as we know from the Conservation Commission letter, it will be replanted. And is it going to take a while for trees to come back? Shrubs will come back a lot quicker, obviously. Yes, they will, but it'll take some time. But I do believe that was the point that Mr. Shaw had brought up last time, was by putting on a zigzag pattern, folks are not standing in front of, I think it's 22, and looking straight into the landfill. Now, that being said, I thought it was very interesting, and I did another drive-by the other day. That straight shot in, you're looking at a hill. So even if it was straight, you're still not looking at the area where this training facility is going to be. We as a board have many times over the years that I've been here suggested some changes to plans, because sometimes we have a little bit macro view that other folks don't see, and say, hey, we've seen some of these plans before. Would it make sense to take a look at something a little bit different? So what Mr. Shaw did last time, I actually agreed with, because we have dealt with some cuttings in the past, and just a small tweak can make a big difference to an application. I was thinking the other day about my own neighborhood. I live in an R9 neighborhood, not far from this, and there's at least 3 pipelines in my neighborhood. You got sewer, you got water, and natural gas coming to my house. So it is normal for a pipeline to be in a neighborhood. That's normal. We live in Nashua. Most of Nashua has those same three pipelines. We have received all the documentation from Pennachuck that they're putting in a water line in this area is appropriate for what the plan is to do with the fire facility. But we're not here to talk about the fire facility. The reason we're here, the special exception, is the wetlands, crossing the wetlands with the trench, and whether it's HDD or whether it's not. It's not a road, it's a trench we're really talking about, and it's about 200 square feet. That's less than the size of the stage. So it's 20 by 10, 200 square feet. So that being said, my history has always been to hold folks to a higher level of accountability when it comes to wetlands. I detest anybody going into wetlands. If you're going to go into wetlands, you better get in, get out, get gone, and get it back the way it was. The plan, everything we see, is for a temporary disturbance of wetlands. The DES is agreeing that there's a temporary disturbance of the wetlands. In addition, two other points I want to make. My first home that I owned in Nashua was in Trestlebrook, which, as I like to tell folks, is on the working end of the dump. It's at the front, it's what's tallest. When the leaves come down, I'm looking right into the dump. I'm looking right where everybody's dropping off the leaves. I could see the fire facility over there. I could see them when they were burning stuff. Honestly, there's no property value impact. The property values at Trestlebrook are probably double what they were when I lived there. 5 months of the year, you're looking right into the dump. The smells, I get it. We all had it on certain days. And so I do believe these folks fear that their lives are going to change completely with this pipeline going in, but I don't think that's the case. So for those reasons, and some more, and I'll let the rest of the board talk, I am in favor of this application as is for the special exception.
Other thoughts from the board? I don't mind weighing in. I agree. I am in support of the application. I don't think it's our place to question whether or not a fire training facility is needed, whether or not this is the best site. That's not before us. What's before us is a water line that's being proposed to impact a small wetland area of a wetland of not considered to be of high value, likely man-made drainage area, and a wetland impact to a buffer, both of which are temporary. So the impact itself is minor in nature. What's being requested is a water line, and a water line, I think, can't be said to be out of character with a neighborhood that is in fact on public water and served by water lines. So I don't see a water line itself as being out of the character of a neighborhood. I do appreciate the concerns of the neighbors. There is going to be a temporary disturbance for construction activity. That's always the nature of construction activity. The street next to mine is being torn up right now, and it's an inconvenience. There's noise, there's traffic diversions, but I also understand it's temporary. That will be, there'll be a few days of significant activity, it will be gone. So that is true, there will be a disruption. There will be trees that will be removed. But I don't think that the removal of those trees is an undue impact. The area will be revegetated. It won't look the same. It will be different. But that difference, I don't think would be adverse. I do think that efforts have been made to minimize the impact. We did request that they look at a change, as Mr. Shaw had suggested, to minimize the visual impact. I think that was done, but it does appear to me that the water line is necessary and that there really isn't a reasonable alternative. Granted, you could shift it back to the location that was previously proposed, there'd still be an impact. So a water line, I think, in this area is necessary. I've not seen any evidence that there would be an adverse impact to wildlife. It does not, or endangered species. It does not appear that the Conservation Commission felt that there would be, or that the New Hampshire DES felt that there would be. For those reasons, I do believe it meets the criteria, and I do support the application. Mr. Shaw.
I feel like I very well might echo and even restate some of the things that you both have said, but I am in support. I understand, I think part of the problem is this application came before us very differently. In fact, the whole, we denied it because I think we all felt the whole thing with the road, the amount of traffic, the impact on the neighborhood was just beyond anything that should be supported. When it came back, the question was, first thing, and we didn't deal with it tonight, as you noted in reading, was a Fisher v. Dover. Did this substantially change? Yes, it substantially changed. There is no road. There won't be a road. It's not allowed to be a road. And I also fully agree that if some sort of road proposal came back, it would get judged that criteria, and I'm hard-pressed to figure out how anybody could propose a road there now and say it's substantially different, because conceptually, I don't know, but, that's a whole different thing, and we're not here for that tonight. But clearly, it became just the impact to the wetlands. So last time, when I kind of started questioning, I was motivated by two things: to reduce the visual impact, because, when it looked like, well, maybe we've talked about this intersection, maybe some sort of angular thing. I also was originally thinking, and I guess in a way, I was mostly focused on direct wetland impact versus the wetland buffers. And at first I was thinking, and even part of my question was, can it be done in a less, impactful way, which is really part of the criteria that we look at for the subpart of wetland special exceptions. As it's turned out, I think it seems that balance between the trade-off of less wetland impact versus more wetland buffer, it's really hard to say exactly where that falls, but it's clearly, relatively similar. And I'm sure people can make the argument one's a little worse than the other. I don't know, but I think that's into some pretty fine granularity. So, but I think the fact that, okay, at least in the end, it seems there's no greater impact for the wetland, and there can be less visual impact. I think that is hopefully a win for the neighborhood. And I also agree that as far as a water line going in is a very normal request. This is unique, it's special, it's to service something proposed in the landfill, but it's not an unusual thing to happen, as you guys have both kind of commented And I also just want to touch on a couple other things, or maybe not so much about specifically the approval, but things that came up in testimony. I mean, there's been this talk about the Ridge Road thing. All I could say is there very well could just be even more impact on a neighborhood with a fire training facility that might be right on top of homes and everything else. And I think that's the kind of thing we just would trade one concern for another. And I'm not sure that, there's probably reasons why that hasn't been considered. There was also concern about what's being burnt and all. I'm pretty sure the last time Chief Buxton talked about that there's very specific requirements for what can be burnt. It has to be very clean material and all that, so I think that is limited. There's also comments about that the scope of the training facility, we were always told, and it's always been, that we support multiple other fire departments coming to use that facility. So I don't think anything changed there. So I didn't see those things changing as far as anything that's happened through the course of the discussion. So I think that's everything that's everything I want to comment on right now. But I am in support, and I think ultimately this is a fairly small scale thing. I understand there's a lot of angst in the community, but I don't know how we could be any clearer. I think we see there's no way this is a road. There won't even be the ability to drive through there because stuff's going to get replanted and it's not going to be accessible. That's not the intent. There's no reason. A buried water line, there should be no reason for that to be accessible. So,
Mr. Delano.
Yeah. So I remember when the road application came through, and I recall saying that if it had just been the wetlands crossing, that I probably would have voted to approve it. But as we all know, there were other issues involved, and the board denied the road. This is not a road, as has been said, and it won't be a road. There were the various things mentioned during the public testimony that puzzled me because they didn't agree with my memory of things. One was discussion about the Ridge Road property. I do recall that coming up and being discussed by the city. There are some legal issues that the city could not develop that to be a fire training facility. It was something about conservation land owned by LCHIP or something like that. I don't remember exactly the details, but that had been considered and it was just not available. I don't like the idea of people trying to keep one-plussing the city's work on how they want to do things. And as Mr. Shaw and Mr. Neely and Mr. Mankara have said, this is putting in a water line. There is going to be some temporary disruption. I mean, there's construction projects and disturbance of woodlands all over the city as infill happens. I mean, there was a large section of woodland near my house when I moved in that's gone. It's got a development there with houses. And yeah, I regret that, but I didn't have there was no really valid reason to stop it. So here we've got this water line going in. After a few years, you're going to be hard pressed to see where it was because of this zigzag plan. There won't be any direct corridor of view to the landfill property. Assuming that the trees are in bloom and things like that. So I'm in support of this application.
Mr. Padre.
So, in my view, this is not a road. It will be it'll be a trench, and the impacts will be temporary. Granted, it will be a long temporary, but I think as long as we require the city to abide by the CONCOM stipulations, it will have to be within that 20-foot swath. There'll be a conservation easement, so a number of the forested land will remain forested in perpetuity. So I think that these stipulations can resolve at least some of the concerns.
Thank you. Mr. Shaw?
The other thing that none of us spoke to, but it was brought up in quite a bit of testimony, was the HDD. And I appreciate that there's a lot of feelings about that and all, but from, I guess, this, maybe it's a little bit, maybe you kind of, maybe your indirect reference to that. But it seems like it's an exceptionally costly way of going about taking care of what is a relatively small impact for this area. And I know the neighbors don't feel this way right now, but this is not a large-scale removal of trees or a large change in what ultimately it will look like. And I think, you know, the long temporary you referred to, I think that's true. There's, I mean, I saw, you know, I have a lot of feelings about like where the McCarthy Middle School went in and putting in like even larger trees and stuff to replace, you know, 80-foot pines that were there, blocking and providing buffer. That just doesn't happen. It's going to take a long time. That's what happens with projects like this. But this is way smaller scale than something like that. So, but ultimately, I don't see that it really is so much in our purview, or that there's anything that pushes me even to feeling like we should be contemplating any stipulations regarding this HDD, I think, with the information that we've heard tonight.
Yeah, I do agree, and thank you for bringing that up, Mr. Shaw. One, and just in general, I'm reluctant to, encourage or require an applicant to pursue a different technology that's perhaps beyond our area of expertise, but we do have testimony that it would be potentially quite expensive or significant addition. We have testimony that it would be less so. But also, I'd also note the testimony, and I agree, it would be irresponsible to propose going that route, or even, I think proposing a reasonable estimate for the cost without doing geotechnical work, and that geotechnical work itself would have an impact necessarily. And it may be an impact that would ultimately, prove to be futile. So I don't think it's a reasonable alternative to pursue, or would it gain any significant advantage in this particular case? Any other discussion? Would anybody like to make a motion? I'll do it. Let me just get my bearings. I have so many papers, so let me just go back to find my application. No, I'm looking for my application. I've got my checklist. Agenda. So I can just read it correctly into the record. I've been shifting. I'm good. I'd like to make a motion that the application for the City of Nashua owner through Chief Steve Buxton, Nashua Fire Rescue, the applicant for 25 Teak Drive, requesting a special exception from Land Use Code Section 190-112 to work in a 40-foot other wetland and wetland buffer to construct a water line service from Teak Drive to the Four Hills landfill property for the proposed fire training facility be approved. I'm going to start with the wetland criteria. We find that the use or activity proposed and its attendant impacts cannot be reasonably avoided, and we do believe that efforts have been made on the applicant to seek alternative routes, but the route that has been proposed seems to be the least impactful, and we are convinced that providing water service to the proposed facility is necessary. Similarly, we find that the least damaging route and methodology have been selected based on the evidence provided, and it is the most practical alternative available. Once again, the impact is minimal. It's going in it's proposed at a route that has the least impact, and it's been designed to minimize the visual impact to the extent possible. We find that a reasonable and acceptable mitigation measures have been incorporated into the project to minimize wetland loss or degradation, as noted, and I'm going to reference it again more than one time, I'm sure, but also in particular with the stipulations that have been proposed by the Conservation Commission, which I do intend to make a part of this motion. The overall impact of encroaching into the wetland or buffer area is necessary for the productive use of the adjoining buildable land, and the impact of the non-encroachment is outweighed by the benefits derived. And again, we are convinced that the extending a water line to the proposed facility is necessary and is necessary for the reasonable use of the property for a fire training facility. We have no evidence that there be a significant impact to the habitat of rare or endangered species or exemplary communities as listed by the state of New Hampshire or federal government, and we would note that no such finding was made by the Conservation Commission or the New Hampshire DES. That the best available adequate erosion and sedimentation control methods are incorporated. That appears to be the case in the plan, and that will also be a stipulation of the wetlands approval from New Hampshire DES. The proposed activity will not significantly impair wetland capacity to provide important wildlife and fishery functions, including habitat, food, shelter, breeding, migratory, and overwintering. Once again, the impact that is proposed is a temporary impact. There will be no enduring impact, as we understand it, to wildlife. That the project will not impair the stability of the water body's bank. There, in this case, is, again, a temporary impact to a minor wetland and will not impact. In fact, we asked specifically that question at a prior hearing, whether there would be any permanent impact to the functioning of the wetland, and the answer was no. That the wetland and buffer function of the hydraulic absorption capacity and storage shall not be impaired. And once again, for the same reasons that I previously mentioned, we do not find that there would be an adverse impact. To regard to the overall criteria, the requested use is listed as a special exception use in the matrix table or is permitted as a special exception by another provision of this chapter. That's referring to the zoning ordinance, and a water line is, of course, an approved use in the zoning ordinance. The requested use will not create undue traffic congestion or unduly impair pedestrian safety. Once again, this is a water line. It's not a road, and while there would be temporary hindrances potentially to traffic through the construction activity, that's temporary, minor, and is typical of what all residents of the city endure during construction projects. The requested use will not overload any public water, drainage, or sewer system or any other municipal assistance to the extent that the requested use in the developed area or the immediate area of the city will be unduly subject to hazards affecting health, safety, or general welfare. Once again, there are temporary impacts, as always, for the construction, but the water line that's proposed itself will not unduly overload or burden public water systems, and we do have a letter from Pennachuck Waterworks to that effect. The special regulations set forth in this article are fulfilled, and those were the special regulations that I just went through. And the requested use will not impair the integrity or be out of character with the district or immediate neighborhood within which is located, nor be detrimental to the health, morals, or welfare of the residents of the city. Once again, as noted, what's proposed is a water line, and a water line is a normal part of the functioning of every neighborhood, or almost every neighborhood in the city. Therefore, it can't be found to be out of character. So for those reasons, I move that the application be granted with the stipulations that were provided by the Conservation Commission in their letter to the board of February 6th. Is there a second? Seconded by Mr. Neely. Any discussion of the motion? All those in favor? Your application is granted. We're going to give folks a moment to clear out of the room, and then unless anybody wants a break, I think we'll just move on to the second application. Just give 1 sec for everybody to kind of clear the room.
Should we take a brief recess, maybe? Ooh, I'm sorry, it just broke. It was here, then it wasn't.
I think they must recycle these.
Yeah.
Sorry about
Do you
that.
want a replacement?
No, I'm good. It's going right in the trash.
Yeah, I know, I just got to keep straight when I'm pitching. Let them recycle.
Recycling, that's what I meant to say.
Oh, I'm going to save these clips. Okay, we are going to move on to the second case, if I may. Everyone's free to continue conversations in the hallway if you wish. The next application is a request from Peralt Revocable Trust, the owner, 56 Lynn Street, requesting a variance from Land Use Code Section 190-264 for an accessory use area, 40% allowed, 48% proposed, to construct a 30 by 40 detached garage that's in the R9 zone in Ward 7. And you must be the applicant.
I am Dave Brawl, 56 Lynn Street.
So feel free to address the board and explain your application and why it is you'd like to pursue this.
I'm new at this, so bear with me.
We absolutely will.
And I have to follow that.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's good.
Sorry about
I don't know
that.
if that's good or
Sorry
bad.
about that.
Yeah, so I'm looking at putting up a detached garage in my backyard. The way my house, I put a plot plan on there, and you can see my current garage would require a variance encroaching on my neighbor on the side if I was to put this size, if I was to remove the garage I have now and put the proposed size garage, I would be right up against the property lines. And I have so much land in the back, I was just figuring I'd put the building out back. I don't plan on being in any setbacks for the R9 zone. For that building, it'll be at least 14 feet away from my fence line, which is 6 inches in from the property line. And it's just a detached garage. There's quite a few, at least 4 in my very immediate neighborhood of detached garages that are this size or even larger than this. So I'm requesting to see if I could, I'm not going to make it 2 stories, it's only going to be a single story. It is fairly large, 1,200 square feet. When I talked to Nicole, she told me because of my pool that I'm going over the allowed square footage of an accessory building, which I don't understand what a pool has to do with an accessory building, but I do have a pool and I'm not able to take it down according to my wife. So originally I put a drawing of a Morton building because that's what I was really looking at originally, which is a steel building. But the cost came in considerably higher than I thought it would. And now I'm looking at quotes for stick building with a prefab building being regular shingles, vinyl siding to match the house. So I think it'll blend in even more than the Morton building would in the backyard. The price of the Morton building was way expensive, more than I thought. So that's what I'm asking for. And if there's any questions, like I said, I'm new at this.
We were all new at this at one point.
I don't plan on doing it a lot.
Questions from the board? Mr. Shaw.
It's more just a little bit of just feedback for you. The thing is, it's accessory use, not accessory buildings. So the pool is considered an accessory use, so that's why it gets calculated in. So just.
I was just surprised.
Yeah, yeah.
So that, right now I have a 12 by 20 canvas shelter garage back there. And the cover is due to be replaced like the 4th time. So I would be removing that building out of there. I understand it's not a building because it's just a covered garage, but that'll be going away, and I'd be using this building, plus I'd be able to put a table saw and little hobby stuff out there, as well as storage. and not have to change the cover again for a long time.
So you've probably spoken to this, but did you consider a smaller building?
I did, but for what, that 12 by 20 is full. So what I'd be allowed, I believe, was like a 28 by 30 building. It's not worth the cost of putting it up for what I'd have for storage in there. So I figured, you know, this would be, it may not end up being 30 by 40. When I get all my prices together, it might be 28 by 36, but I didn't want to go through the whole process and have to come back before you again to add 4 feet to a building, you know, if I could go 40 feet, so. Since I need, even for that size building, it would be very close to the 40% calculation.
Any other questions from the board? Mr. Shaw?
Have you had any conversation with your neighbor at 58 who would be the most affected by this? Or have you
Yeah,
done-
so the neighbors on both sides of me, there's only one that I haven't asked, because I don't see him as often, but the other ones are like, yeah, we don't care.
Thank you.
Mr.
So
Patrick?
it looks like your neighbor on 58, this actually, your current shed is closer to his line than the proposed shed would be.
Correct.
So it actually is a little
It's
further
actually,
away.
yeah, it is 58, yes. I'm actually moving that over, because I don't want it, if I'm gonna put a permanent structure there, I'm gonna leave a decent-sized swath behind it and on the side of it, so.
Any other questions from the board? You're free to take a seat.
Thank you.
I'm guessing there's no one in the audience who wants to speak in favor or oppose. So given that, we're going to close the public hearing and open up the deliberations of the board. Thoughts from the board? Mr. Shaw?
I'm in support. I think this is reasonable. It didn't come up directly in any testimony, but I also note that this lot is one of the biggest lots in this neighborhood. And as far as like, you know, we see this a lot, I would say, where, you know, even a relatively big additional freestanding structure still doesn't really use up that much space of the lot itself. So there will still be obviously lots of yard, lots of space. I appreciate that the applicant's intending to keep this further away from the side property line, which is, I think, just overall helpful for any, you know, just aesthetics and just impact for that neighbor. So, but it's a reasonable use. Yes, it's a large structure, but I think I don't see any problems with it. There's obviously no concern expressed from the neighbors, so I am in support.
Mr. Leno?
Yeah, I'm also in support, and I additionally note that there is basically a park or a conservation land in back of this property, so there's no neighbor there to be concerned. I mean, the size of the building is a bit large, but where it's being placed, the size of the lot, I think is reasonable.
Any other thoughts? Yeah, I would agree, and I did note that the property is, you know, is distinct in its size, and yes, that it's a budding conservation land, and also that there are other properties in this immediate area with pretty large accessory structures, so I don't think it would be out of character. Also glad to hear that it'd be stick-built. I think that will fit in better. Anybody want to make a motion? Mr. Neely?
All right, I would like to make a motion to approve the variance for the Peralt Revocable Trust owner, 56 Lynn Street, Sheet 5, Lot 30, requesting a variance for Land Use Code Section 190-264 for accessory use area 40% allowed, 48% proposed, to construct a 30-foot by 40-foot detached garage. This is in the R9 zone in Ward 7. Granting the variance would not be contrary to the public interest in that many of the other houses in this neighborhood all have garages, so it is normal in this area to have a garage of a certain size. The spirit of the ordinance would be observed in that this is a large lot and is irregular shaped. and the fact that it is going to 48% from 40. The applicant said his lot is just a little bit bigger. He needs the extra space as he's already filled his other garage. Granting the variance would do substantial justice to him. Once again, for the same basic reasoning, is that this garage is normal for this area, and he does need the extra space. He did note that this new building will actually be further away from his neighbor's property line, which, of course, the board looks favorable on. We have no reason to think that the value of the surrounding property would be negatively affected. And as to unnecessary hardship, as noted by the applicant, he did take a look at putting the garage on the other side of the house, and he would have to get a variance for that as well because of the shape of this lot, which is basically a trapezoid. It makes sense for this to go further back on the property. As noted, he is moving it away from the property of 58, so as to be in full compliance. In addition, this property looks like it has a growth behind it, probably protected by the Salmon Brook Sanctuary. So there'll be nobody who will be affected on the back side of the property as well. So for those reasons, I make a motion to approve.
Is there a second? Seconded by Mr. Lionel. Any discussion? All those in favor? And your request is granted. Thank you. You're welcome. Finally, the application of Roscommon Investments LLC, the owners, at 147 Daniel Webster Highway, requesting a special exception from Land Use Code Section 190-112 to work in a 40-foot wetland and wetland buffer to allow for a 140-space parking lot expansion that's in the GOV zone in Ward 7. And you are here to speak for the applicant.
Yes. Good evening, everyone. My name is Paul Chisholm. I'm with Keach Nordstrom Associates. We are the engineers and surveyors of record for the project. Tonight I'm representing Roscommon Investment LLCs as the owner and the Tully Automotive Group as the operator of not only this property, but the direct abutting property to the right or north, which is the Tully dealership. You know, on the surface, this is actually a relatively straightforward project in the sense that it's a parking expansion. You know, there's no buildings, there's nothing like that. What complicates it is obviously kind of the larger impact. It's a little over half an acre in total direct wetland impact and a little over 30,000 square feet in wetland buffer impact. I'll get into all of that a little bit more, but I kind of want to take you back a little bit through the history of the property and the project in general. So what's not in your packet, obviously we did provide you a lot of paperwork, enough to dive into for sure, but this all started back in 2019. Back in 2019, the dealership was just experiencing an economic boom of sorts. They were running out of space where to put cars on the property. They had made some runs at some other properties trying to, you know, develop nearby, not even adjacent to the site, and really nothing came to fruition. So what we did is we actually had initial talks with DES, we had initial talks with the DOT, just to try and get a sense of, you know, hey, is this project even really feasible? We had a pretty good warm feeling coming out of those meetings, and by the time we got around to actually turning it into a project on the local level, 2020 came around, the pandemic hit. Supply chain issues were obviously very disruptive to not just this dealership, but the industry in general, and that really changed the course of a lot of things. Since 2020, they have been able to kind of get their hands on some other alternatives. They've explored some other things, including a property on West Glenwood Street that they purchased and developed, which is, you know, if you're driving along Route 3 North between exits 2 and 3, it's on the right-hand side. They have a white building with red lettering, and it's like almost 400, you know, spaces for vehicles up there. In addition, you know, the Tullys have a second dealership, a satellite dealership up in Manchester. I think it was in 2022 they purchased an additional property adjacent to that. They developed that. We've expanded it twice since, just to get them incremental kind of areas to store cars and kind of help their operations. Currently, they're also leasing a property owned by, I think it's the Toyota of Nash dealership on the other side of West Glenwood. It's just another car storage lot, if you will. And it's just not enough to keep up. Obviously, there's an interest for the business that they want to be able to store everything on their property. And so we kind of came back into this talk again once they realized that there's really, although they've been looking at potentially, acquiring other properties and expanding elsewhere, there's really nowhere else to go. So this is kind of where we're at this point in time. Before diving in and submitting an application here, we again re-engaged with the DOT, with DES, and kind of dove in a little bit more into design elements that were kind of talked about during those initial discussions back in 2019. And the main nuts and bolts of this are that, we actually believe stormwater can be enhanced greatly by allowing this impact and allowing the stormwater improvements to actually be constructed. And what I mean by that is, right now, this wetland is completely fed by, I think it's 4 different drainage pipes in 3 locations that are all coming off of the highway. There's no stormwater treatment, there's no detention, there's none of those things that really occur here. So this is highway drainage that basically dumps just outside the Tully property, runs through the Tully property. It's then collected and hard piped across DW Highway. When the Effie Everett Turnpike was constructed in the 90s, the DOT also built a very large stormwater system on the property directly, I guess, to the east of this. That's, the ramp that you have there. You can see it. You're just standing from, obviously on the facility. You can look across and see it. That property is about the same size of the property that Ross Common is, planning this on here. So it's a very substantial stormwater treatment system. Obviously, there's kind of a gap in, a lot of things are hard piped directly to that stormwater system. This is kind of an area where the DOT didn't do that. And so there's not only a net benefit from just basically kind of creating more of a direct link from the stormwater in this case by adding additional pipes and having that untreated water not directly run through a wetland. Obviously, that's not an ideal situation environmentally speaking. Having a direct link more so, again, to the treatment system where it's all intended to go is one benefit. The second benefit is obviously any on-site drainage that's going to be created, because there's about an acre of area that's going to change the drainage pattern from following where that DOT drainage is going to now getting collected on-site. That's all going to be put through a compliant treatment system on this property now. So that's all the new pavement that we're talking about with this addition here. And then obviously where that all goes is the same location. It's almost double treated in the sense where it'll be treated on site just to meet the current, New Hampshire DES Alteration of Terrain Bureau standards, obviously the city standards, and then it's going to be treated again as it goes across the street. So it adds a whole second layer of treatment just for these new impervious areas here. The main drivers, there's really 2 main drivers for why this wetland needs to be impacted. Number one is just obviously the business is growing. It's been around for a very long time. It's a very successful business. And there, if you drive by, I don't know if you've kind of taken a closer look knowing that this application's coming before you, but I mean, they're just really out of space there. You have cars kind of lined up, not in paved areas, kind of off to the side, where they have grassed areas, landscape islands, things of that nature. And the other part of it is the wetland has become a little bit of a nuisance. The trees that exist in there, a lot of them are dying or dead. They've had issues in the past where branches have fallen on vehicles and stuff like that, and it's just been a little bit of an issue like that. In addition, just with, in the rainier seasons, they've had, obviously we've had a couple of years of drought in there recently, but in the rainier seasons, they've also had issues with like pavement adjacent to the wetland areas really getting kind of destroyed. Just with frost heaves and other things like that, just because of the water kind of underneath of that being fed from these drainage pipes. So those are the 2 main drivers for this. We had Cindy Balsius from Stony Ridge Environmental basically do everything wetland related on this. She's filed the permits with DES. She was with us when we attended the Conservation Commission for our 2 hearings on our site walk. Her classification of this wetland is basically that it is incredibly low function. It's very isolated. It's very likely that this has either, it may not have been formed initially from these drainage pipes, but it certainly has been expanded as a result of them. And our talks with DES, I think everyone acknowledges that, this impact, there's a very large mitigation fee that's paid with that, that the benefit that comes with the fee, the benefit that will be applied to another area that isn't a fragmented wetland that really has no value is going to be a better situation. I would say that, there certainly isn't any habitat or anything like that associated with this. There is a slight, detention benefit from a stormwater management perspective, just because it takes a little time for that water to find its way from the end of those pipes on the DOT property, to and through the Tully property here. To make up for that, we have put in a little underground system just to kind of, detain the water on site a little bit more. And so that's really the nuts and bolts of the application. I'm certainly happy to jump in and talk about, some of the criteria, if there's any specific questions or anything like that. I don't know if you want me to read them into the record, but, I'm happy to just kind of talk it out with whatever you think you want to focus on.
I think we have it in writing. I don't know that we need you to read through it.
Perfect, thank you.
Questions from the board? Mr. Neely?
So do I read this right or hear you right, that basically the 4 pipes coming off of the highway, you're just going to basically put something on the end of it, so it's not dumping on the ground, it's going to go right into this underground system before it goes across the road?
More or less, yes. So the answer is technically no. There's actually a small gap there. We have riprap designed. The DOT actually wanted to keep those separate. The Tullys are going to be responsible for maintenance from the new pipes into their system. The DOT didn't want any, responsibility, and they wanted a very clear line of delineation. So we do have a small gap there. Basically, the other component of that is those pipes actually, they're actually a few feet uphill. So if you're standing at the bottom of where they filled up for the ramp, it's probably at my eye level. You're probably 5-6 feet up. And so it basically, there's going to be riprap there that just kind of prevents erosion from occurring and things like that. And then it's going to be collected right at the bottom of the hill. Which kind of is what the DOT was looking for there.
And this underground system, was it just like a bunch of baffles or something, or like a dumbed down oil water separator basically to kind of just make things mix up a little bit?
Yeah, I think on that end, I believe what we did over there was 48-inch pipe, and there's several sticks of that, and basically it was just kind of a volume equation of how much, we have kind of like an outlet control structure on the end of it, and it's just a way of like, all right, how big does it need to be to slow it down enough to make up the function that welling currently provides?
And last question, I don't have it in front of me here, so Conservation Commission, was there no criteria on their letter? I don't remember seeing any criteria on there.
No, they actually.
I've never seen that.
So, yeah, they actually, I was expecting, honestly, more questions coming out of them on that. I think they understood what the application is, and they understood that this, we went out and we looked at it. This is a wetland, sure, but, this isn't like other wetlands that you see. This isn't like there's, animals running around and things. This is like very much just almost like a drainage area in a way. And, yeah, they had no specific criteria that they wanted, no stipulations. It was just a favorable recommendation.
If I may, related to some of Mr. Neely's comments, do I understand that the treatment component they'll be putting in would improve the water quality coming out of the end of the pipe before it goes into the detention basin across the street?
No.
It will not.
So there's basically, think about it like there's 2 ways of this being handled. There's the DOT drainage and there's the on-site drainage. The on-site drainage is the drainage that we're responsible for and will be treated. The DOT drainage is simply just going to get a little bit closer link to their own treatment system that it already exists in place.
Makes sense. Other questions from the board? Mr. Shaw?
I guess I feel a little bit confused about one thing, and that's just, will there be actually less total wetland present after this proposal? So there will be a loss of wetlands?
Correct.
Technically?
Yes, there will, yes.
Okay. And is that, is there an area figure for that?
Yeah,
And-
page 9 of 14 on the plan set, there's actually, it's probably the best visual. It's the darker area that we have colored in there is the area that's basically going to be permanently impacted. And that number is 22,450 square feet.
This one.
Yep, it's the wetland impact plan that you're looking for.
And do you anticipate that DES will require any mitigation for that?
No mitigation in terms of like actually physically recreating something, mitigation in the form of, six-figure check. Yeah.
Financially, yeah, I saw that.
Yeah. And my understanding of that is basically that's put into some sort of fund that DES controls, but that money is going to be kept in the same watershed that this project is in, and that's how that works.
And just to kind of also go back, I think maybe this is the part of the tie-in to your comments earlier, that this is one of these cases where, yes, it's technically wetland, but it's more just like kind of drainage ditch kind of stuff. It's not really what anybody would generally look at and go, that's a wetland that's benefiting wildlife or anything. It's more, in fact, if anything, it's hard to say at this point. It very well might be wetlands that basically were from all that highway construction ultimately, right?
Correct, yeah.
That, you know, I've seen other places like where the wetland gets created mostly because of functioning of a property, not that there was really ever any real original wetland there, but now
Right.
it's become a wetland.
Absolutely. And, you know, you got to keep in mind, this is a very, very well-developed area, right?
Yeah,
There's
yeah.
not a lot of things here. So this is, you know, incredibly secluded. My guess is honestly that, obviously with the highway being built, and I think it was the mid to early 90s, that's really what, you know, kind of triggered this to form, or at least become super isolated, you know, whatever the case might be. I don't know what it looked like. I was only, I don't know, 5 maybe at the time, but.
You were not even a thought. It was the 50s. The widening was in the 90s.
Sure, okay.
True, yeah, this is the circumferential highway, yeah, one of the only parts that actually ever got built.
Dream.
I know I have a plan from the DOT from 1995 or 6, which I think was their as-built plan of kind of this ramp in this area.
Yeah,
sounds about
that
right.
we work off of, so.
Yes, I remember the turnpike widening. It was a thing. Any other questions from the board? Seeing none, we can obviously close the public hearing. I don't have any testimony one way or the other, so we'll just open up the deliberations of the board. Mr. Neely.
So, as I mentioned earlier, I have a very high criteria for folks who want to work in wetlands. And when I first got this application, it said they were going to add in 38,546 square feet of additional impervious surface and basically put a bunch of asphalt in the wetlands. I said, you got to be kidding me. And so it took a little bit of digging, some deep reading. I had to get into some Conservation Commission notes on that because, once again, the Conservation Commission letter has nothing on it that was usable. I've never seen that. But this makes more sense to me, is that they are taking water that's just coming off the highway. It's not going to be good water. It's going to be garbage water. And basically, they're sending it over to someplace they designed. When you take a look at the pictures of this wetlands, it's choked. The verbiage in the description here is that it's grapevines and just a bunch of just garbage. There are no species living in there. Nothing is going to be affected. And I do love the fact these folks are working on the underground system to get more water out of their additional 38,546 square feet of impervious surface, going through, for lack of a better term, an oil water separator type thing underground to get it cleaned up before it gets out of there. So I do believe this is well thought out. So that definitely changed my mind. I am in favor of this. I think they've met all the criteria on the checklist for both wetland and special exceptions. So I don't see any reason that we should be denying this.
Other thoughts? Mr. Shaw?
Yeah, I'm ultimately in support, and I think Mr. Neely put a lot of good points there already. But it is hard to generally endorse anything that's reducing wetlands. I mean, I think it's just that similar kind of thing, like, that's not what we're supposed to do, right? So, but in this case, it feels much more like we're dealing with like the technicality of something that's identified as wetland, but doesn't really provide any of the benefits that we think of normally when it's like we want to preserve a wetland, so.
Other thoughts? Yeah, I would just say I concur. I had that same thought. I had pause when I first saw the application, but this is essentially a drainage area sandwiched between a parking lot and a highway. The most important thing is the hydrological function, and it appears to me that the design that's proposed will take care of that function, handle the drainage, and that's clearly a DOT concurs, and they wouldn't if they, I don't believe, unless they had, assurance that that would be the case. So I support the application as well. Anybody want to make a motion? Nobody wants us to make a wetlands motion. All right. You want to do it?
You can do it. You want me to do it?
Yeah, if you want to do
I'll
it.
take
Sure.
it, that's
Do
fine,
it.
sure. A lot of reading, all right. All right, I would like to make a motion to approve the variance for Roscom Investments LLC owner, 147 Daniel Webster Highway, Sheet A, Lot 987, requesting a special exception from Land Use Code Section 190-112 to work in a 40-foot wetland and wetland buffer to allow for 140 space parking lot expansion. This is in the GB zone in Ward 7. I would like to start with the wetland and wetland buffer encroachment affidavit, as this would apply. The applicant attested to the following criteria for approval: that the use or activity proposed and its attendant impacts cannot be reasonably avoided. As the applicant noted, this is really just some drainage swales, and the water is going to be redirected to a properly functioning wetland area that's been designed by the DOT years ago to handle this drainage. The least damaging route and methodology have been selected, and that which is being proposed is the best practicable alternative available. Once again, there's really two systems here. One is catching the water coming out of the drain pipes very close to where they're coming out, redirecting them across the street to where there's a proper wetland. And for the additional 38,000 square feet of parking, they are adding in a system underground to catch that water and get some more of the potential contaminants out before it enters any legitimate wetland. The reasonable and acceptable impact mitigation measures have been incorporated where necessary and appropriate to minimize wetland loss or degradation. Once again, the applicant noted that this has been approved by DOT, and they are making a payment in lieu of, for I believe it was $171,000 that is state approved. The overall impact of encroaching in a wetland or buffer area is necessary for the productive use of adjoining buildable land, and as such, non-encroachment is outweighed by the benefits thereby derived. The applicant noted that they have received some damage to some of their cars due to some of the trees in this small wetland falling apart. This wetland is overgrown by invasive species, and it would be in the benefit of everyone to eliminate the invasive species. There's no significant impact on the habitat of rare or endangered species or exemplary communities as listed by the state of New Hampshire or federal government will result. It was noted in the study that there are no endangered species noted in the area, and no expectation that an endangered species would be able to make their way to that area due to the gradient. The best available adequate erosion and sedimentation control methods are incorporated. Once again, the applicant has noted that they're setting up some piping right outside of the drainage, the 4 drainage swales coming off of the highway to catch it almost immediately as it comes out, goes right into the piping and goes across to the area where the DOT had created an actual wetland. The proposed activity or use shall not significantly impair wetland capacity to provide important wildlife and fishery functions, including habitat, food, shelter, breeding, migratory, and overwintering. It was noted in the application that there was no notices of any type of wildlife, especially endangered species. Any type of animals expected to be in there would just be transiting the area, but would not be staying there, as it's a very small wetland area. The project shall not impair the stability of a water body's bank. As noted, this project will not affect any type of water body bank. And the wetland and buffer function of hydrological absorption capacity and storage shall not be impaired. As noted with this plan, the water is being redirected across the street to the area that was designed by the DOT years ago to properly handle the water coming off of the highway. That's a mouthful. That one. All right, as to the special exception worksheet, the requested use is listed as a special exception in the use matrix 190-15, table 15-1, and is permitted as a special exception by another provision of this chapter. The requested use will not create undue traffic congestion or unduly impair pedestrian safety. Neither cars transiting the area or pedestrians should be expected in this area, as is being paved as a parking lot, so there'll be a very small amount of pedestrian and vehicle traffic. The requested use will not overload any public water, drainage, or sewer system or any other municipal system to such an extent that the requested use or any developed use in the immediate area or in any other area of the city will be unduly subjected to hazards affecting health, safety, or the general welfare. As noted by the applicant, the water is being redirected immediately when it comes off the highway into piping to go across the street to an area designed by the DOT to properly handle all of the water outflow. Any special regulations for the use set forth in this article are fulfilled, i.e. the wetlands application, which I just went over a moment ago, the wetland and wetland buffer encroachment affidavit, and the requested use will not impair the integrity or be out of character with a district or immediate neighborhood in which it is located, nor be detrimental to the health, morals, or welfare of the residents of the city. As noted in this application, this is a very busy highway. The applicant is a very busy car dealership that needs additional spaces to properly run their business. Working with the state DOT and DES, they have found a way to add some additional parking lot by eliminating a wetland, which we think is in name only due to water coming off of the highway. They are capturing it, sending it across the street to an area that was properly designed for this. So quite frankly, the district and immediate neighborhood will not even know the difference, so there are no effects. So for those reasons, I make a motion to approve the special exception.
Is there a second? Seconded by Mr. Patrick. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Motion passes. Thank you. All right. Here's Paul. Take care. So moving along, has everybody had a chance to see the next agenda? I'll be stunned if you found it.
No effect.
That takes us to approval of the January 27th minutes.
We actually have January 13th minutes.
Got two sets.
Oh, we got two sets of
Yeah.
minutes, that's right. All right, let me have this. So we'll start with minutes of the 13th. Anybody see any issues, any corrections? Mr. Shaw?
The one thing I saw was at the very end, I think, the last page, page 11, after my motion for the slate of officers, we're missing the second and the motion passing.
Oh,
So,
that's important.
yeah.
Who was the second?
I think it was JP, but I'm not certain. I don't remember. I'd have to go, we'd have to check.
I'll listen to it again.
Yeah,
Okay, that's probably right.
yeah.
Probably, yeah.
All right. Anything else?
What?
I didn't have any edits.
All right.
Wow.
So can I get a motion to approve? Motion by Mr. Shaw, seconded by Mr. Patrick.
Yeah.
Any discussion? All those in favor? All right, and now that takes us to the next set of minutes, January 27th. And I was not here for that meeting. Any changes, comments, thoughts?
Motion to approve as drafted.
Motion by Mr. Patrick, seconded by Mr. Neely. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? And I'm going to abstain. Anything else we need to discuss this evening? If not, I think we can all just go brush some snow off our cars.
Oh, yeah.
Motion to adjourn?
So moved.
By Mr. Patrick. Second? Second by Mr. Shaw. We are adjourned.
8:37. I won't have to brush snow off because had to park in the garage.